I've got a really deep question for you today. What do you think the most hated Call of Duty game of all time is? Maybe it's Call of Duty Ghost. Maybe Call of Duty Vanguard, if you were to ask me. A lot of you will probably say Black Ops 7 at this moment, since it's the most recent example of a hated game in the series, even though I don't think it's nearly as bad as some of the other games in the franchise. We could talk about that a little bit later on. And I'm sure you guys also know that not every hated Call of Duty necessarily deserves the hate that it receives. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Jimmy or Chaos. Sometimes it's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes the community just gets a bad first impression. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Modern Warfare 3, the original, was actually first released. People were pissed off. They were furious about it because of how much it recycled from Modern Warfare 2 in terms of animations, gun models. But obviously, classic Modern Warfare 3 went on to be one of the best-selling and all-time most beloved games in the entire franchise. It is in my top 3. I also remember when Black Ops 3 was first revealed. People were once again concerned and pissed about the inclusion of wall running and specialist characters in the multiplayer, but once again, as time went on, that game ended up being a fan favorite, to the point that a lot of you probably have Black Ops 3 in your all-time top 5 best COD list. So let's go back to the question. What do you think is the most hated Call of Duty game out there? Realistically, I think that title has to go to Infinite Warfare because it was hated right out of the gate at the reveal trailer. And then the game came out, and just about every aspect of it was ripped to shreds by all of us. But was that fair? Well, today, I want to take a look back. I want to take a look back at Infinite Warfare, answer one simple question. Is it overhated? Now, I want you guys to keep in mind, I am absolutely not saying that you have to like Infinite Warfare or that it didn't have a ton of things wrong with it, but I do want to look at certain aspects of it and determine if they actually deserved to be criticized as hard as they were, and if the community was just caught up in the moment, eager to dump on it. So you let me know in the comments what you think about Infinite Warfare 9 years later. Yes, it's been almost a decade. Drop a like, make sure you guys are subscribed, and this is a commentary, but it's not necessarily a rant, it's more of a deep dive. If you guys enjoy that, let me know in the comments. Yes, I read every single comment on every single video, and I don't use AI to do it. So like I said, the game was getting ripped apart immediately upon its reveal. Infinite Warfare was revealed in early 2016 after Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3. So in order to really understand why people hated it so much, we have to look at what else was going on in gaming at that time. Futuristic sci-fi shooters, they were everywhere. Titanfall had dropped in 2014. There was a sequel scheduled already, released in 2016. Halo was still going strong with the Master Chief Collection in 2014 and Halo 5 in 2015. Overwatch's launch was right around the corner. It wasn't quite as futuristic, but it definitely was leaning into the more wacky style of multiplayer FPS, and even Call of Duty. Call of Duty had been getting more and more outlandish with Advanced Warfare in 2014. Remember the Clown Exo, the Gingerbread Man? And then Black Ops 3? Well, remember the melee weapons in Black Ops 3? Classic boots on the ground multiplayer shooters? They weren't very prominent at that time. That led to them being very in demand. So in early 2016, everybody was looking to Call of Duty to give them a more grounded and old school PvP shooter, myself included. With Infinity Ward scheduled to give us the 2016 COD game, I think we can all agree. We were hoping for something in the same style, same vein as the classic Modern Warfare trilogy. Now, granted, the most recent Infinity Ward game at the time was Ghost. People didn't want Ghost 2. But I think we're all pretty hopeful that Infinity Ward was not going to go futuristic like everyone else was doing at the time. But then the trailer dropped, and it was confirmed. Not only was Infinity Ward doing a futuristic game, they were going even further into the future than anybody in Call of Duty had ever done. Infinite Warfare was literally going to take us into space. We had laser guns, we had spaceships, we had robots, we had distant planets. It was a full-on sci-fi game. And even though it was uncharted territory for Call of Duty, it was the exact opposite of what people actually wanted. The trailer became the most disliked gaming video on YouTube, and Activision allegedly was so freaked out by the reception that they called up Sledgehammer Games, who were working on COD 2017 at the time, and they told them to scrap everything they were doing. They wanted them to make a World War II themed game, which obviously sent development on that game into a frenzy. And that's a COD history video for another day if you guys want to know about that. But I have a sneaking suspicion that Sledgehammer was working on Advanced Warfare 2. I really think they were, which would have been yet another futuristic game. And as Activision watched the dislikes pour in on Infinite Warfare, they were like, absolutely not. We have to do a 180 here. And then that's also how Sledgehammer gets the bad end of the stick every time. So on top of all that, Infinite Warfare also got into additional hot water right out of the gate because at the very end of the reveal trailer, a second Call of Duty game was confirmed. Makes this the only time in COD history there have actually been 2 games released in a single year. That second game was exactly what we wanted. It was exactly what people have been asking for, a faithful remaster of Call of Duty 4, complete with the campaign and the multiplayer. But you know how you got it? At that time, you had to buy the deluxe edition of Infinite Warfare. Yeah, if you didn't want Infinite Warfare, but you did want Modern Warfare Remastered, you had to drop a minimum of $80 on IW to get to it. Talk about a paywall. Of course, people were pissed about this. A huge chunk of the community jumped ship to Battlefield that year, especially since Battlefield was going back to World War I in 2016. This was the perfect storm for them. We all wanted boots on the ground. Call of Duty went the opposite way. Battlefield leaned in. I'm telling you all this history because it's important context when we look at the actual gameplay and the content of Infinite Warfare, because I really don't think the game would have been so poorly received if it weren't for all of these other things going on and contributing factors. But now that you're up to speed, you got your history lesson in on what was going on in gaming in 2016. Let's talk about the game itself. Answer the question I prompted you at the beginning of the video. Did Infinite Warfare actually deserve all the hate? Don't answer yet. One area where this game absolutely did not deserve the hate was the campaign. The Infinite Warfare campaign is honestly fantastic. Heck, I would even call it a top 3 COD campaign, and I will die on that hill. And there's a lot of good Call of Duty campaigns. Aside from it having absolutely breathtaking visuals and atmosphere, which still hold up to this day, it also had a unique crafted story for a COD game. A very engaging story, if you ask me. Not only were there great characters and really interesting weapons, but there was full-on space battles, zero-gravity combat sections. Put simply, Infinite Warfare deserves absolutely zero hate for its campaign, because it's one of the best in the entire franchise. Now, people may not have wanted Infinity Ward to go full sci-fi with the game, but they leaned into every aspect of the setting. They made it one of the best sci-fi military FPS games I've ever played. And if you've never played the campaign, you don't get an opinion on this. You should absolutely go play it. It's 100% worth your time, and then come back and comment on the video. And like I said, or I've said in the past, some of you may remember I got flown out to be able to see this. Like, I got to go mocap for Infinite Warfare. I was technically in the game. I didn't make it in the final game, but I was in the game. I met the team, all the people that crafted this and spent years putting this together. It was a love letter. It was a love letter to Call of Duty, and it was a true passion project. Now, talking about Infinite Warfare content that didn't deserve the hate, let's also talk about zombies. It was good. This was the first time in COD history that Infinity Ward was responsible for making a zombies mode, which certainly was pretty scary for Infinity Ward, because we all know how passionate the zombies community can be if you mess something up on the timeline, or you don't live up to the high expectations set by Treyarch Zombies team, or you make a top 10 best zombie maps of all time and you try to say it's a certain map and that doesn't go over well. Infinity Ward decided to take things in an interesting direction. They went off on their own, did their own thing. Instead of trying to carry on with the Black Ops Zombies vibe and storyline, they made this cheesy B-movie style zombies experience. It was almost entirely disconnected from the main timeline. Gave players a goofy but still kind of scary co-op shooter mode that had all the great elements of Treyarch zombie modes, but they put their own twist on it. Zombies in Spaceland? Great map. Absolutely loaded with content. While I can understand why some longtime zombie players didn't vibe with Infinity Ward's new cheesy 80s themed version of the mode, I loved it. If you didn't go into the zombies mode expecting a proper continuation of Treyarch zombies mode, it was a ton of fun. I will solidly say that this is another aspect of Infinite Warfare that did not deserve the hate. But now, we get to the multiplayer. This is where the loudest critics were, right? I think a lot of it was justified. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Infinite Warfare's multiplayer was the worst COD multiplayer ever, because I still think there's a ton of very valid criticisms that made the game bad, but it's not the worst. Here's the thing. If the campaign was great and the zombies were great, that could have been enough to get the multiplayer community to actually give this game a fighting chance if the multiplayer had been on the same level as Black Ops 3. But it wasn't. Movement system? It was the exact same as BO3. And there was a combat rigs replacing the specialist system. They function the same. Infinite Warfare also had a pick 10 system for the classes, meaning almost every aspect of IW's multiplayer was going to be directly compared to Black Ops 3's multiplayer, 1-to-1. And that wasn't a good idea, because almost every aspect of Infinite Warfare's multiplayer fell short when you compared it 1-to-1 to Black Ops 3, especially since Black Ops 3 still had a very active community at that time. Everybody jumped ship and went back. Infinite Warfare needed to give people a reason to drop Black Ops 3 and come play Infinite Warfare because so much of the core experience was the same, there was just no reason to do that. It also didn't help that Infinite Warfare's multiplayer had massive flaws that didn't exist in Black Ops 3. For example, the gun balance in Infinite Warfare on launch day was bad. The MV4 completely dominated the whole experience, and a bunch of the guns just felt unviable compared to top-tier weapons. There was no variety in the game for months until Infinity Ward finally nerfed the MV4, but by that time, and they did it was too late. People were also pretty pissed off by the maps being much less interesting, both in terms of visual and design. The palette sucked. And then the stuff that was already in Black Ops 3, seemed like every other week there was a new out-of-the-map glitch being discovered, which led Infinity Ward literally to having to pull some of these maps out of the rotation so they could fix them. And on top of all that, we had supply drops. We had weapon variants. Now, on one hand, the supply drops weren't nearly as predatory in this game as they were in Black Ops 3 and Advanced Warfare due to the simple fact that you were also earning in-game currency that you could use directly to buy the stuff you wanted. On the other side, people were fed up with supply drops in general after 2 whole years of them, and even though Infinite Warfare had a system in place for you to get all the stuff you wanted without having to roll the dice, it did not change the fact that the system was still in the game. It didn't change that it was super prominent every time you turned on the game. So even though this was one of the better supply drop systems in COD history, it was also one of the most hated because of how closely it was tied to the experience, if that makes any sense. So, looking back at Infinite Warfare, it's honestly hard to say that it was the worst multiplayer in COD history because we now know all the stuff that came after it. And even though I really did not enjoy this year's COD offering, I can't say it was the worst COD multiplayer. Heck, I don't even know if I'd put it in the bottom 5 anymore, which is a wild thing to say, but that's where I sit and we sit in 2025 as a franchise. So, do I think the hate for Infinite Warfare was justified? My answer? Honestly, no. The campaign was great. The zombies mode was awesome. And even though the multiplayer mode had a lot of issues, I don't think it was anywhere near being the worst in the series, which granted, we didn't know that at that time, but I think you guys get the point of what I'm trying to make here. I think the hate for this game was largely based around the things going on in the gaming world at that time. And I 100% do not think the game would have been so hated at all if it had come out in 2014 or 2015. So you guys let me know, a little retrospection, I don't even know what we call it, into Infinite Warfare. No, I don't think the hate was deserved. You guys can argue back, rebuttal, agree with me, disagree with me, let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you soon.